The accidental intrusion. Sienna Hayes pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the elevator, willing her exhaustion to fade. It was 3 in the morning, and her second job at the Apex Tower had just begun. By day, she assisted at a struggling art gallery in Brooklyn, but by night, she became part of the invisible workforce that kept Manhattan's elite towers gleaming. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the button for the 38th floor. The corporate offices needed their nightly cleaning before the executives arrived at dawn, but tonight, fate had other plans. The elevator jolted unexpectedly, and when the doors slid open, Sienna found herself staring at a hallway she had never seen before. This was not the sterile, fluorescent-lit corridor of the offices. Instead, warm recessed lighting illuminated walls covered in original artwork. A subtle scent of sandalwood hung in the air. Her breath caught as realization dawned. She was on the penthouse level, the private domain of Damien Cross himself. The man in shadow Severy, cleaning staff member, knew the rules. The top floor was strictly forbidden. Yet here she stood, curiosity warring with common sense. Through the partially open double doors at the end of the hall, she glimpsed movement. Someone was inside. Logic screamed at her to retreat, but something deeper pulled her forward. Perhaps it was the bone-deep weariness of working 70-hour weeks. Perhaps it was the reckless part of her that had been dormant for too long, suffocated by responsibility and survival. Whatever the reason, Sienna found her feet carrying her toward those doors. The penthouse was breathtaking. Massive windows wrapped around 3 sides, transforming the night skyline into living art. Modern furniture in shades of charcoal and cream created intimate spaces within the vast room. And there, silhouetted against the glittering city, stood a man who radiated power even in stillness. Damien Cross had his back to her, one hand holding a crystal tumbler, the other thrust into the pocket of his tailored trousers. His white shirt was partially unbuttoned, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with subtle muscle. Dark hair fell across his forehead in a way that suggested he had been running his hands through it. "You should not be here." His voice cut through the silence like velvet over steel. He had not turned around, yet somehow he knew she was there. The spark that Ignateshna's heart hammered against her ribs. "I know. The elevator malfunctioned. I will leave immediately. Will you?" Now he turned, and Sienna forgot how to breathe. Damien Cross was not classically handsome in the polished way of magazine covers. His features were too sharp, too intense. A strong jaw, high cheekbones, and eyes so dark, they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. But it was the intelligence burning in those eyes, the barely contained intensity, that made him magnetic. "You have been standing there for 30 seconds, he continued, moving closer with the fluid grace of a predator. "If you truly wanted to leave, you would already be gone." Heat flooded Sienna's cheeks. He was right. She had been staring, caught like a moth mesmerized by flame. "What is your name?" The question was not harsh, but there was command in it, the voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Sienna. Sienna Hayes." "Sienna." He said it slowly, as though tasting each syllable. "Tell me why you are really here, Sienna Hayes. And do not lie to me. I can always tell when someone is lying." The truth laid bare. Something about his directness stripped away her usual defenses. Perhaps it was exhaustion, or perhaps it was the way he looked at her. Not through her as most people did, but at her, as though she was worth seeing. "I wanted to see how the other half lives," she admitted quietly. "Just once, I wanted to stand in a place like this and pretend that I belonged somewhere beautiful." Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken things. Then Damien moved to a bar cart and poured amber liquid into a second glass. "Then stay," he offered her the glass. "Tell me about yourself, Sienna Hayes, who wants to belong somewhere beautiful." Every instinct told her this was dangerous. He was Damien Cross, the tech mogul who had revolutionized artificial intelligence and amassed a fortune before 30. She was nobody, a woman working 2 jobs to keep a crumbling studio apartment in Queens. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something unexpected. Loneliness. The same aching isolation she carried, hidden beneath different veneers. Sienna took the glass. Their fingers brushed, and electricity shot up her arm, Crossing the Linathy sat on opposite ends of the long sofa, the city sprawling endlessly behind them. The whiskey burned pleasantly as it slid down her throat, warming her from within. "How long have you worked here?" Damien asked, his gaze never leaving her face. 3 months on the night shift. During the day, work at the Meridian Gallery in Brooklyn. You work 2 jobs? Some of us do not have the luxury of choosing just one. The words came out sharper than intended. But Damien did not flinch. Fair point. He took a slow sip of his drink. What would you do if you could do anything? If money was not an obstacle? The question caught her off guard. Nobody had ever asked her that before. Dreams were luxuries for people who could afford them. I would open my own gallery, she heard herself say. Not for the wealthy collectors, but for emerging artists who need someone to believe in them. I would create a space where art was not about investment portfolios, but about beauty and truth and connection. Why do you not? Because dreams do not pay rent, Mr. Cross. Damien, he corrected softly. When we are alone, call me Damien. The walls come down. Something shifted in the air between them, an invisible thread pulling taut. Sienna found herself really talking, in a way she had not done in years. She told him about growing up with parents who loved art, but never had money. About losing them both in a car accident when she was 19. About working her way through community college while juggling jobs and grief. Damien listened with complete attention. No phone to distract him, no impatient glances at his watch. When she finished, he set down his glass and leaned forward. You are not nobody, Sienna. You are extraordinary. Most people surrender their dreams long before they reach your age. You are still fighting for yours. The intensity in his voice made her chest tighten. Why are you being kind to me? Because kindness should not be reserved only for people who can repay it. He paused, his jaw tightening. And because you are the first genuine person I have encountered in months, maybe years. Everyone in my world wants something from me. Money, connections, access. But you looked at me just now and saw a person, not an opportunity. You are lonely, Sienna whispered, understanding flooding through her, profoundly. The word was raw, stripped of pretense. The point of no return. Damien stood and moved to the windows, staring out at his kingdom of glass and steel. Do you know what it is like to be surrounded by people, yet feel completely alone? To wonder if anyone would care about you if you lost everything tomorrow? Sienna rose and walked to stand beside him. Yes, I know exactly what that feels like. He turned to her then, and the vulnerability in his eyes stole her breath. This close, she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, smell the subtle spice of his cologne mixed with whiskey and something uniquely him. I should not want this, Damien said quietly, his hand lifting to hover near her face without touching. You work in my building. This crosses every professional boundary, but I cannot remember the last time I felt this alive. Felt what? Sienna's voice was barely audible. This? His thumb brushed across her cheekbone in the lightest possible touch. Tell me you do not feel it too, and I will step back. I will let you walk away, and we will pretend this night never happened. Sienna knew she should lie, should protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak of wanting something she could never have. But she had been invisible for so long, overlooked and unseen. And here was someone who saw her, really saw her, and looked at her like she mattered. I feel it, she whispered. Damien's eyes darkened with something primal and tender all at once. His hand cupped her face fully now, warm and sure. Then stay with me tonight. Just talk with me until dawn. Let me prove to you that you are not invisible. Not to me. And Sienna, who had spent years playing it safe, nodded. Dawn painted the penthouse in shades of rose and gold. Sienna woke slowly, disoriented by the unfamiliar softness beneath her. For a confused moment, she thought she was dreaming. Then memory crashed back, stealing her breath. She was still on Damien's sofa, but now a cashmere blanket covered her. Across the room, he stood at the espresso machine, wearing fresh clothes, his hair damp from a shower. When he noticed her stirring, his face transformed with a smile that made her heart stumble. Good morning, he said, his voice warm and intimate. I made coffee. How do you take it? Black is fine. Sienna sat up, suddenly self-conscious in her rumpled work uniform. The harsh morning light exposed the reality of their situation. What had seemed magical at 3 in the morning now felt impossibly complicated. Damien brought her the coffee and sat beside her, close enough that their knees touched. "You are thinking too much. I can see it in your eyes. This was a mistake," she said quietly, though her heart protested the words. "You are Damien Cross. I clean your building. This cannot work." The proposition, why not? He set down his cup and turned to face her fully. "Because society says we should not cross invisible lines? Because I have money and you do not? Those are just constructs, Sienna. They only have power if we give it to them. It is not that simple. Then let us make it simple." His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "Have dinner with me tonight. Let me take you somewhere beautiful. Give this a chance before you walk away from something that could be extraordinary." Sienna wanted to refuse. Wanted to protect herself from the inevitable pain of falling for someone she could never truly have. But when she looked into his eyes and saw hope mixed with vulnerability, she found herself nodding. "One dinner," she agreed. "But it has to be secret. If anyone finds out, I will lose my job. Then we will be careful." Damien lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent shivers racing up her arm. "Tonight? 8 o'clock. I will send a car for you." The double life begins. Next 3 weeks became a beautiful, dangerous blur. By day, Sienna worked at the gallery and caught whatever sleep she could. By night, she cleaned the Apex Tower offices, always careful to avoid the penthouse during her official rounds. But after her shift ended, she would take that elevator to the forbidden floor, where Damien waited with that smile that made the whole world disappear. They could not go to restaurants where they might be recognized. So Damien cooked for her in his expansive kitchen. He was surprisingly skilled, creating elaborate meals, while they talked about everything and nothing. Art and technology and childhood dreams and adult fears. He told her about his mother who died giving birth to him, about his father who blamed him for that loss and raised him with cold efficiency rather than love, about building his company from nothing, proving to the world that he was more than his father's disappointment, about the loneliness of success when you have nobody to share it with. Sienna shared her own wounds. The foster homes after her parents died, bouncing between families who saw her as a burden rather than a person, teaching herself about art from library books because nobody cared enough to nurture her interests. The shame of poverty and the exhaustion of always struggling. They fit together like two broken pieces that had finally found their match. The first warning, but secrets have a way of unraveling. It started with small things. Sienna arriving at work looking happier, softer. Her supervisor, Rosa, noticed immediately. "You are glowing," Rosa said one night, cornering Sienna by the supply closet. "Who is he?" "What? Nobody. I'm just sleeping better lately." Rosa's eyes narrowed. "Sienna Hayes, I have known you for 3 months. You never sleep. So either you found magic pills or you found a man. Which is it?" Sienna tried to laugh it off, but Rosa was too perceptive. Over the next week, she watched Sienna more closely, noticed how she lingered after her shift ended, noticed the private smiles when Sienna thought nobody was looking. One morning, Rosa pulled her aside with an expression that mixed concern and fear. "Please tell me you are not involved with someone in this building." Sienna's silence was answer enough. "Oh, honey, no." Rosa gripped her shoulders. "Do you know what happens to girls like us when we get involved with powerful men? We get used and discarded. We lose our jobs and our reputations. Please, whoever he is, end it before you get hurt." The pressure builds, but ending it was impossible. Sienna was already too deep, too attached. What had started as attraction had blossomed into something terrifying and wonderful. She was falling in love with Damien Cross, and every logical part of her brain screamed that this would end in disaster. That night, when she reached the penthouse, Damien knew immediately that something was wrong. He gathered her into his arms, and she broke down crying against his chest. "Rosa knows," she sobbed. "She figured it out. And she is right, Damien. This is insane. We are from completely different worlds. What are we even doing?" Damien held her tighter, his hand stroking her hair. "We are building something real, something that matters more than money or status or what anyone else thinks." but for how long? What happens when your business associates find out? When your investors discover you are involved with a cleaning woman, I will become a liability, a scandal. Then let them find out. His voice was fierce. I am tired of hiding you, Sienna. Tired of pretending that the best thing in my life does not exist. The dangerous proposal. He pulled back to look at her, his hands framing her face. Move in with me. Be with me openly. Stop hiding in the shadows. Sienna's heart raced with terror and hope. You cannot be serious. I have never been more serious about anything. His thumbs brushed away her tears. I know we have only known each other for 3 weeks. I know this seems fast, but I have spent my entire life making careful, calculated decisions, and none of them made me happy. You make me happy, Sienna. You make me feel like a human being instead of just a profit margin. Your world will destroy me, she whispered. Then we will face it together. He pressed his forehead to hers. I am not asking you to be something you are not. I am asking you to let me stand beside you while you become everything you are meant to be. Let me help you open that gallery. Let me support your dreams the way you support my humanity. The decision that changes everything. Sienna closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of him, the solid strength of his presence. Every rational thought said to run, to protect herself, to remember that fairy tales did not come true for girls like her. But when she opened her eyes and saw the raw vulnerability in his face, saw how much courage it took for him to offer her his heart, knowing she might refuse, she made her choice. Yes, she breathed. Yes, I will move in with you. Damien's face broke into the most beautiful smile she had ever seen. He kissed her then, deep and passionate, pouring every unspoken feeling into that connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you, Sienna Hayes. I know it is too soon to say it, but I do not care. I love you. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but this time, they were tears of joy. I love you too. God help me, but I do. The storm gathering hat they did not know was that they were already being watched. Victoria Blackwood, Damien's business partner and the woman who controlled 49% of his company, had made it her business to know everything about him. When her private investigator delivered photos of Damien with Sienna, kissing on the penthouse terrace, laughing over dinner, looking at each other with obvious adoration, Victoria saw red. She had invested 15 years building their company, carefully managing Damien's image, positioning him as the most eligible bachelor in tech. His romantic life was supposed to be strategic, partnerships with women from appropriate families that would expand their business connections. This cleaning woman threatened everything. She was a scandal waiting to happen, a liability that could damage their company's reputation and stock value. More importantly, she had something Victoria had never managed to obtain: Damien's heart. Victoria was not a woman who accepted defeat gracefully. If Damien would not see reason on his own, she would make him see it. By any means necessary, she made a phone call to the head of the cleaning company, then another call to Sienna's landlord, a man who owed Victoria several favors, then a third call to her lawyer. The pieces were moving into position, and Sienna Hayes had no idea that her world was about to come crashing down. The perfect moment before the storm that Saturday, Sienna moved her few belongings into the penthouse. It did not take long. Everything she owned fit into 3 suitcases and 2 boxes of books. Damien helped her unpack, treating each item with care, as though her worn paperbacks and thrift store clothes were precious treasures. This is it? He asked, not with judgment, but with sadness. This is everything you own? I have learned to travel light, she said with a shrug that did not quite hide her embarrassment. Damien pulled her into his arms. Then we will fill this place with your things. Your art, your books, your dreams. We will make it ours together. That night, they cooked dinner together, danced to music playing from his sound system, and made love for the first time. Slow and tender and full of promises. Neither could speak aloud. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, with the city lights glittering beyond the windows, Sienna let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, fairy tales could come true. But fairy tales always have a villain. And Victoria Blackwood was about to make her move. The systematic destruction. Monday morning, Sienna woke to a phone call that shattered her fragile happiness. Her supervisor at the cleaning company, a different person than Rosa, spoke in clipped, professional tones. "Miss Hayes, we are terminating your employment effective immediately. There have been complaints about your conduct. Your final paycheck will be mailed to you." "What complaints? I have not done anything wrong. The decision is final. Do not return to any of our sites." The line went dead. Sienna stared at the phone, her hands shaking. Damien emerged from the shower, took one look at her face, and crossed the room in 3 strides. "What happened?" "I was just fired. They said there were complaints, but they would not tell me what kind." "Damien, I need that job. I cannot just rely on you for everything." "This is my mother's doing," he said grimly. Victoria was not his mother, but he had always called her that, since she had been his father's business partner and had helped raise him after his mother died. "She is trying to isolate you, make you dependent on me so she can claim you are a gold digger. Then maybe I should leave," Sienna whispered, though the words felt like glass in her throat. Maybe Rosa was right. Maybe I am just going to be a liability to you. The escalation demean gripped her shoulders, his eyes blazing. "Do not let her win. We knew this would be hard. We fight together, remember?" But Victoria was just getting started. Over the next week, the attacks intensified. Sienna received an eviction notice from her old apartment, claiming violations she had never committed. Job applications she submitted to galleries came back rejected with no explanation. Her social media accounts were flooded with messages from anonymous accounts calling her a gold digger and worse. Each blow chipped away at her confidence. Damien tried to shield her, hiring lawyers and using his connections to push back. But Victoria had planned carefully. Everything she did was just barely legal, just subtle enough that Damien could not prove her involvement. The breaking point came when Sienna tried to visit the Meridian Gallery where she had worked. The owner, a woman who had been her mentor, refused to see her. The assistant manager delivered the message with obvious discomfort. "I am sorry, Sienna. Mrs. Chen said you are not welcome here anymore. Someone sent her photos of you with Damien Cross, and implied you used your position here to try to social climb. She thinks you were using the gallery as a stepping stone." Sienna felt her world crumbling. The gallery had been her sanctuary, the one place where she felt she had value beyond her relationship with Damien. Now even that was poisoned. She walked back to the penthouse in a daze, barely seeing the streets around her. When she arrived, she found Damien in his office on a tense phone call. She heard Victoria's name and quietly closed the door, giving him privacy. In the bathroom, she finally let herself break. "Great!" Gasping sobs tore from her chest as the weight of everything crashed down. She had lost her jobs, her reputation, her independence. Everything she had worked so hard to build was gone. And for what? A relationship that might not even survive this pressure? The confrontation dean found her there 20 minutes later, tears streaming down her face, and something in him snapped. He had tried to handle this diplomatically, tried to reason with Victoria, but seeing Sienna broken like this ignited a cold fury he had never felt before. "Get dressed," he said quietly. "We are going to end this tonight." An hour later, they stood in the lobby of Victoria's penthouse across town. She had agreed to meet them, probably expecting Damien to come alone and plead for mercy. Her face registered surprise when she opened the door and found them both. Victoria Blackwood was a striking woman in her early 50s, with silver blonde hair cut in a severe bob and eyes like chips of blue ice. She wore a designer suit even at 8 in the evening, every inch the powerful businesswoman. "Damien," she said coolly, ignoring Sienna entirely. "I expected you alone. Sienna is part of this conversation. She deserves to face her accuser directly." Victoria's lips curved in a smile that held no warmth. "Accuser? I have no idea what you mean." "Do not play games, Victoria." Damien's voice was steel. "You have systematically destroyed Sienna's life over the past 2 weeks. You got her fired, evicted, blacklisted from every gallery in the city. You have tried to break her, so she will leave me. The true colors revealed, and I will keep trying until she does," Victoria said calmly, dropping all pretense. She turned her icy gaze on Sienna. You do not belong in his world, girl. You are a distraction, a phase. Eventually, Damien will realize that and move on to someone appropriate. I'm simply speeding up the inevitable. You do not get to decide who I love, Damien said. I decide what is best for our company. And this, Victoria gestured dismissively at Sienna, a public relations disaster waiting to happen. The media will tear her apart. They will call her a gold digger, a social climber. Our investors will question your judgment. Our stock price will suffer. So this is about money? Sienna found her voice, anger cutting through her hurt. You are destroying my life because you are worried about stock prices? Victoria looked at her with something like pity. Grow up, dear. Everything is about money. That is how the real world works. Something you would understand if you belonged in it. Enough. Damien stepped between them. Victoria, you have two choices. You can accept Sienna and stop this campaign against her, or I will buy out your share of the company and sever our partnership completely. The ultimatum. Victoria laughed, but there was an edge of hysteria in it. You cannot afford to buy me out. It would cost you everything, including control of the company we built together. Then I will sell the company entirely and start over. Damien's voice was calm, absolute. I would rather build a new empire from nothing, with Sienna by my side, than keep this one without her. The room went silent. Victoria stared at him as though seeing a stranger. You would throw away 15 years of work for a woman you have known for a month? I would throw away everything for her, because she is the only thing that makes any of it matter. He took Sienna's hand. I built this company to prove I was worth something, to show my father and the world that I mattered. But I was empty inside. Sienna taught me that success without love is just an expensive way to be lonely. Tears streamed down Sienna's face as she listened to him choose her, fully and completely, over everything else. Victoria's face had gone pale. If you do this, you will regret it. You will resent her for making you give up everything. The only thing I would regret is letting her go. The resilient Victoria was silent for a long moment, studying them both. Finally, she sighed, and for the first time, she looked tired and old. You really love her, more than anything. Victoria nodded slowly. Then I will stop. I will make calls tomorrow, and do what I can. But Damien, if this relationship fails, if she breaks your heart, do not come crying to me. I would not dream of it. As they left Victoria's building, Sienna felt like she could breathe again for the first time in weeks. But there was still something she needed to say. You should not have to choose between your company and me, she said, as they walked through the night streets. Victoria was right about one thing. I do not fit in your world. I do not know how to be the partner a man like you needs. Damien stopped walking and turned to face her, framing her face with his hands. You are exactly the partner I need. Not someone who knows which fork to use at fancy dinners or how to make small talk at charity galas. Someone who sees me. Someone who makes me want to be better. Someone who reminds me why any of this matters. The new beginning. But what about your company? Your reputation? I will rebuild whatever I have to rebuild. But Sienna, I cannot rebuild my heart if I lose you. You are not a weakness or a liability. You are my strength. He kissed her then, standing on a Manhattan street corner, with taxis rushing past and strangers flowing around them. And in that kiss was a promise. That love was worth fighting for. That some things mattered more than money or status or what anyone else thought. 6 months later, Sienna stood in the gallery she had always dreamed of opening. The Hayes Foundation for Emerging Artists occupied a beautiful space in Chelsea, funded by Damien, but run entirely by her vision. Tonight was the opening exhibition, featuring work from artists who had never had a chance before. Damien stood beside her, his arm around her waist, as they watched people admire the art. Victoria had come too, still somewhat stiff, but making an effort. She had kept her word, using her influence to help rather than harm. Are you happy? Damien whispered in Sienna's ear. She turned to him, this man who had seen her when she was invisible, who had chosen her over everything else, who had taught her that she was worthy of love. Happier than I ever thought possible. Good. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Sienna's breath caught. Because I want to make sure you stay happy for the rest of our lives. Sienna Hayes, will you marry me? Through tears of joy, she said yes, and as he slipped the ring on her finger, surrounded by art and love and possibility, Sienna realized something profound. She had spent so long feeling invisible, believing she did not deserve beautiful things. But she had been wrong. Everyone deserves to be seen. Everyone deserved to be loved. Everyone deserved their fairy tale. She had found hers. Not because a billionaire had rescued her, but because two broken people had chosen to build something whole together. That was the real magic. Not money or power or status. Just love. Real, messy, complicated, beautiful love. And that made all the difference. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Subscribe to our channel for more emotional romance stories that celebrate the power of love. Remember, you are never invisible to the people who truly see you.